The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program as we're loaded up. Tuesdays mean John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel coming up a little bit later. Also, Pat Dooley will join us. Pat Dooley has covered the Florida Gators for, well, before I covered Tennessee, so that's saying a lot. Also, he has a weekly show with Steve Spurrier, so we'll get his thoughts on detail-oriented Billy Napier and the fact that maybe, just maybe, he's turned things around. We will discuss with Pat Dooley later in the program. Also, here momentarily, I'm going to tell you just how to fix Nico. I'm going to make it easy, very fixable. He did not play well on Saturday. I think we could all agree with that. We'll also have Dylan Sampson and Keenan Pilley's thoughts on the bye week, how they didn't or did practice lackadaisical. They both have their individual thoughts on that. This day in Tennessee sports history, Eli Drinkwitz, maybe some fake trash talk against Mizzou. We'll discuss that. And Connor Cook also saying the noise at practice is louder. So we always like talking a little Eli because he's a goofball. Nico Iamaleava, is he more like Joe Milton III or Hendon Hooker as of this moment in time? Was Tennessee's secondary exposed? I don't think so, but we'll discuss. And how bad SEC teams are undermining college football playoff chances, bad SEC losses, I should say. That's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. So the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. A lot going on in the program. Caleb, I start out and ask you, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Dave?
Never better. So it is Florida week, and it's not the same as it used to be. I can remember the CBS trucks rolling in for the 3:30 kickoff, and it was the only game in which they would come in Monday and do a number of features on the Vols. I was a student at that point and then later covered it in the 90s. So for me, even though Florida's not Florida this year and Tennessee's coming off a very frustrating loss, it's still Florida week, which means something to me.
Yeah, I agree. And Dave, though, I have to say that CBS does not agree. And CBS is very, very, very happy that they might carry the Purdue-Illinois game instead of the Tennessee-Florida game this week. I'm sure that's what they wanted when they refused to renegotiate their contract with the SEC and refused to up their pay at all to keep the SEC.
Okay, well, wait a second now. You've been more on top of this than me, and you have a TV background, so I kind of trust you on this. But you said it was a terrible deal for the SEC and going with ESPN. Now you're saying that CBS didn't get a great deal. So has anything changed now that we've seen the actual production through the first month?
No. Yes, it was a terrible deal by SEC. Because ESPN but because it was a terrible deal for the SEC, Dave, on the other end, that means ESPN got the deal of a lifetime. CBS could have had that deal of a lifetime.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I mean. Yeah. CBS, by the way, the SEC would have stayed with CBS for less than they asked for from ESPN. And it would have been an even dumber deal for Greg Sankey, but it would have been a sweetheart deal for CBS.
I wonder, too, with the Big Ten, did you know that every school that has had to travel 2 or 3 time zones, there has only been one team that has won, the team that had to travel, and that would be Indiana at UCLA. Did you realize that? Is that not a stunning stat?
That's an insane stat. I did not know that at all. That's wow, that's crazy.
Well, it to me was just I don't know, simple logic. I don't know about you, but if you put me on a plane and say, hey, you got to do the show tomorrow with Caleb, but you're going to have jet lag and you're going to be in a different time zone, I think it's just natural. So what is our poll question today, Caleb, which will lead us into today's tough question? And that will be brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones. Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. What is our poll question, Caleb?
So it's, should Tennessee simplify things for Nico Iamaleava? Yes, they've thrown too much at him. No, he's too good.
Okay, here we go. Today's tough question, as the show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Let's remember that Nico Iamaleava has just started 6 games, that he's a redshirt freshman, and Caleb and I both thought he would come out of the chute and do well. I don't think there's any debating that, Caleb. But now, given what we've seen and the fact that we know that Nico didn't play incredibly well last week, which I think we would all agree on. So my thinking is, because he looked befuddled, because he looked lost at times, it is time to make things a little bit more simple. Now, I've talked to some people in the know, and I think there are a lot of bad mistakes by everybody on the offense, Nico included. I think guys ran the wrong routes from people I've talked to. I think that obviously the offensive tackles were poor to quite poor. But here's what I'm saying to make things easier. So they did this with Heath Schuler. We talked about it briefly yesterday, but it worked. And that is when you hit your back foot, and Heath grew into the offense. He wasn't always like this, but when you hit your back foot, if the receiver's open, throw it. If not, run. And I believe this would do a couple of things, Caleb. Number one, it would attack the middle of the field. Because right now, Tennessee's not attacking the middle of the field via the pass at all. It would also, you have 2 situations that you could potentially run against. So let's say that the defense is playing a deep zone, because primarily defensive teams coming at Tennessee have done one of 2 things, and that's to play deep quarters and allow things to happen underneath. It's especially the case with some of the lesser opponents. Or Oklahoma and Arkansas took it a step further and brought in a very aggressive blitz package. So if you're in the deep covers, then you're still going to pick up 5-6 yards before the defensive backs can close on you if that first receiver's not open. If they're in man, they have to watch their man. So you have a potential for a really big scramble and a really big pickup. Caleb, I know this is super simplifying. And maybe I'm overreacting to one bad game. So I just want to ask you, what is your initial take? And then we'll address the poll question, which is in the same regard. But what do you think of my idea? And I'm going to make one more argument before you jump in there and probably call me an idiot. But my one other argument is I still believe that Nico Iamaleava is an elite talent, both running the football, even though he looked unsure against Arkansas, and throwing the football, even though he threw a couple of picks against NC State. I still think he's an elite talent. I think this team is not consistent enough around him for him to showcase that. So what do you think of my plant, throw, or go?
Yeah, I actually do really significantly disagree with you. And the biggest reason I disagree with you is because, well, it's twofold. One, to have that first read and run, you kind of need to bank on the idea that your tackles can maintain their blocks. Otherwise, you will get sacked more times than not. Heath Schuler had much better tackles than Nico Iamaleava has at this moment when they did that with him.
Hold on, let me stop you there. I'm not talking about rolling out necessarily. I mean, this could be in between the A or B gap. The tackles are getting beat. I think this is more of a direct run if it's there. He did that once against Arkansas. I believe that the run was still there. That might have been Oklahoma, where it was just an easy 6 yards to pick up, and he did it. So that I'm not talking about scrambling out like Taylor Green did last week.
Well, see, I think you would only get away with this one game, and then defense would adjust.
I agree.
And
No. I totally agree. But I think this is the week to do it because it would surprise Florida, and you're going to have to do something else the following week against Alabama. You and I are in total agreement. This is not a long-term fix for me.
Okay, but see, I would save it for Alabama because I think Tennessee can beat Florida despite what happened last week. I think Tennessee can beat Florida without doing that. I think they can just run it down Florida's throat with Dylan Sampson the whole game. And so there's the issue that you're only going to get away with it one game. Two, Nico's not as good of a runner as Heath Schuler was, or as Hendon Hooker was, or as a lot of other quarterbacks were. He's an awkward runner. He's meant to stay in the pocket. And three, I would argue that I'm going to stick with this. His arm is too good. He can make any throw. It's just I think he's too late getting rid of the ball. I think he's missing some guys open. He's not seeing them when he should. But at the same time, I think you simplify the route concepts. I think there's throws Nico can make. I think Josh Heupel's not being aggressive enough with him. I'll just say that. I don't think Josh Heupel is using Nico enough to take enough shots.
Well, I don't think they're throwing over the middle enough, and that's part of the problem. And I don't know if he's protecting Nico because that's where bad stuff happens, over the middle. You throw it over the middle, it's likely to get tipped. More interceptions happen over the middle. We saw that with Nico against NC State when he threw an interception into coverage. Now, we've discussed that maybe Brew McCoy led up, but still, this is a team that's going to have to win with defense for the foreseeable future. And that may all change on Saturday, but they're going to have to win with defense. And that being the case, if you can just move the chains, convert some first downs. I'm not talking about turning him into Tommy Frazier, Caleb, but I think you're undervaluing that he is a good runner when he feels comfortable in the game. He was a good runner earlier this year. Again, lesser opponents, but he was not comfortable. So against Arkansas, anything that you want to pick out that he didn't do well is partially because he wasn't comfortable with the game plan, whether it's running, passing, or whatever.
All right, so I got a question for you.
Late on.
And this is an interesting one. My brother texted me this, and I never thought about this until he texted it to me. Do you think part of the problem is Josh Heupel doesn't know how to coach with an elite defense? And he's a little bit like he's not sure what he wants to do offensively because he could play a lot more ball control than he has in the past, and he's not fully committed to his style?
I can't say that because I thought he did a great job in the Oklahoma game. So
yeah,
if you have an issue again, then the Oklahoma game was the anomaly, right? And your brother has a good point. But right now, it's 50-50 to me. So, Caleb, what would you do to fix Nico, if not simplify things? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Go ahead and click that like button, please. If you don't mind, would greatly appreciate that. Make sure you've got your notifications on. I'm assuming you're subscribed because we've got all kinds of special things coming down the road. So what would you do, Caleb? Would you simplify things? Would you make things easier? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. All right, what would you do? How would you tweak the offense, if at all, to get Nico more comfortable?
I would just keep airing it out over the middle. I would get aggressive. I'd get absolutely aggressive. I would reverse what Josh Heupel's been doing. I would pass to set up the run, and I would make the secondary work for it. I think if you keep doing it, some deep shots are bound to hit, And I think once that happens, you'll start to scare a lot of other teams. I'd be throwing over the middle a lot more, and I wouldn't even care about interceptions. I would just constantly do it. And I'd be willing to bet that if you keep doing it, Nico's going to hit some. You're going to get his confidence up if you do that, because he's going to hit some passes. And so I would just, I'm not even kidding. I would Mike Leach level. I would Steve Spurrier level throw the ball in the 90s. I would just air it out everywhere. And I know
you got
that
to be able to protect a tackle. You know that, none of that.
Yes, you do. But also the one good thing about tackles messing up plays is because the interior line is blocking so well, you can step to the right spot in the pocket to make the throws. So I would just coach this week all the time, Nico stepping up to the right side, and I guess that would be the A gap, right? And or B gap, and making the throw that way. And I would coach him like, all right, you got 3 seconds after you step up. Once you step up, if you get another 3 seconds, somebody's open. And I would just run that system, and I'd run crosses constantly over the middle, because, by the way, plenty of those were open on Saturday. Nico just couldn't see him because he kept having to roll out. So what I would actually do more than anything, I get rid of the option routes for receivers. I would just design the routes. No more option routes. This is where they're going.
Now, whether one of us may be right, one may not, okay? But we're both saying make things easier on Nico, right? No option routes. Yeah. I say run with Nico more often when things aren't there in the past. Tell him to be more aggressive with his legs. Either way, is it disappointing that we're having this conversation at all?
It's absolutely disappointing that we're having this conversation. It's disappointing for Tennessee. It's a red flag for Tennessee. I don't know where the issue is, and I think that's the worst part. Well, we know, because like the whole unit was struggling. We're talking about receivers running wrong routes, offensive linemen missing blocks, Nico not making the right throw. Well, geez, where do they have talent then? They have 5 and 4 star receivers all over the field. We believed in these guys. We thought receiver was going to be one of their strongest units. How are they struggling on this front?
I don't know, but they are. And going back and looking at it, I thought Squirrel White ran a really bad route over the middle. So maybe they don't trust their slot receivers or other guys to run crisp routes over the middle. You certainly hope that's not the case. Tennessee visited with the media, of course, after the game. And there were 2 comments that I thought kind of flew in the face of one another and made me scratch my head and say, what the H?
Say when.
Say when. That's right. What the H? And what the H is brought to you by our good friends, Medicare Misty.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, a couple of different comments that I want to pull up, and then let me ask you, in the comments section, are you following what I'm proposing, or do you think I'm being a little bit of an alarmist? So who are we going to hear from first? Is it going to be Dylan Sampson, Caleb?
Yes, we're going to hear from Dylan Sampson first. It's not as long with Dylan Sampson, but it is kind of interesting. Keenan Peely, I actually extended the clip because I think it's a little more revealing what he said. But let's start with Dylan Sampson. And this is what Dylan Sampson said on Saturday after the game. So here we go.
Away from each other. You go back and look at, probably some of our actions, probably we were a little lackadaisical with that bye week, taking things for granted, So, I told my team already in the locker room, it's just, we can't take those things for granted. We can't just flip a switch on. So, you know what I'm saying? Every time we go out there, on the practice field, in the meeting room, we got to have great attention to detail.
Okay. So that's Dylan Sampson. Let's go now to Keenan Peely, who was asked specifically about Sampson's comments that Tennessee was lackadaisical.
Yes, and we're going to start. We're going to play the question because there's something Keenan Peely said before making those comments and being asked that question. That's part of it that we have to play. Okay. So let's pull this up. And here we go with Keenan Peely.
Our offense had a chance at the end of the game, and I saw a lot of guys that believed they could score, believed they could do it. And obviously we didn't get the result we wanted, but that's okay. I liked how our team responded to that type of adversity there at the end, although it wasn't what we wanted.
Dylan said that y'all might have been just too lackadaisical on the bye week. Did you feel that too? And if so, why?
I didn't feel that way. I can't speak for the team as a whole, but I feel like we had guys attacking it every day. But probably could have been a better job, and I hope this could be a good learning lesson for our team. Defense, offense, special teams as a whole. We can't beat ourselves, and that's going to be true for the rest of the season.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to decipher this because I've been to more press conferences than I could possibly count. That's Keenan Pili said the defense wasn't lackadaisical. By the way, it's lackadaisical, not lackadaisical. But that's Keenan Pili saying, we didn't have that issue. Why in the world did you guys have that issue? And for those that don't know, ones don't go against ones very often once you get into the season. So you literally could show up at a game and it be news to you that the other side of the ball has not been as intense as you and ready as you were headed into the game. So, Caleb, is this a potential issue? What the H, brought to you by Medicare Misty, licensed in over 40 states, so she can take care of your Medicare needs at no charge to you. Divisiveness? Possibly. Medicare Misty? Yes.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right. So do you have any concern that the Vols could divide between offense and defense? I've seen that happen. A lot of people wondered if the offense, Caleb, would resent the defense in 2022 when Tennessee scoring 500 points a game and the defense is giving up 5 million yards per game. It didn't happen in 2022. You concerned it could happen now?
Yes, and because there's a difference. It didn't happen in 2022 because I think if you're the offense, you could see that the defense, I mean, I hate to do the E for effort thing, but you could see that the defense wasn't very good and that they really were maximizing what they could do given what they were working with, particularly with the secondary. They just weren't that athletic and the linebackers weren't that athletic. On this go around, I think there is friction, but I don't just think it's between the offense and the defense. I think it's within the offense. I think Dylan Sampson, because we all saw Dylan Sampson play. He wasn't lackadaisical. And as a matter of fact, I have to eat even more crow this week because I went back and watched some film, Dave. Do you realize how many times Dylan Sampson picked up a block because John Campbell or Lance Hurd just whiffed so badly and he saved Nico from getting sacked again?
At least half dozen.
Yeah. I think he was calling out I think there's friction in the offense, and Dylan Sampson is beyond, I'm just going to say he's beyond pissed at members of this offense. And to his credit, he actually defended Nico. He went out and said Nico's young. He made mistakes. If you really listen to what he was saying, he doesn't think certain players focused hard enough to help out Nico in this game. And he is beyond upset with them. And so while I think there is friction, I think the defense is mad at the offense, and Dylan Sampson himself is mad at the offense for not showing up. And I think there are specific players that he's pissed at.
Frustrated, I would think, would be a better word. You get mad and angry if it continues to happen. But I thought Keenan Pili, and for those that are watching our video platforms, including YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. I thought you could kind of see it in his face where he heard the question was, Dylan Sampson said you're a little bit lackadaisical in the week leading up to the Arkansas game. And it felt like to me that he just said something bad about his mom. You know, it resonated. And it's one of those things where you really have to be at the press conference or watch the press conference and ask around. But I agree with you on half of what you said. I believe that Tennessee is frustrated offensively. I think they're frustrated in part because they can't get healthy at offensive tackle. Now, I'm not going to get into whether or not Lance Hurd should have played earlier and chemistry should have been better if he'd have gone out there and gets against Oklahoma. Okay. But John Campbell Jr. is also not playing incredibly well. So I think you have a bunch of guys on offense that are frustrated with the offensive tackle position, Caleb. Totally agree. However, I'm going to go back to a word that you kind of made fun of, but at times you've also agreed with me, and that is culture. I don't think that Tennessee's going to finger point because of culture. There are still enough guys from that 2022 team where I don't think that'll be an issue, Caleb.
I agree. I think there is great culture within the program, but I think that there are some players, because Heupel's really gone heavily into the transfer portal, that can mess with the culture. And I'll just put that out there. Now, the reason I played that full clip of Healy, Dave, is before I asked that question, you notice what he said? Offense had a chance to win it at the end, and we just didn't get it done. He kind of threw in, we did our job. The offense didn't do their job. I mean, Healy straight up threw that in there. And by the way, I think if Peely's frustrated, who's probably one of the most level-headed guys on the team, imagine all the other players. I mean, that's why I defended also Amari Thomas throwing the fan to the ground. How frustrated are you if you're Amari Thomas, Dave, when you played the way you played all game? You didn't register a stat because defensive linemen sometimes can't do that, but you got the push needed to help your team win, and you got no help from your offense, and then you're walking off the field in a loss, and you do what you do, and you throw a fan to the ground, and maybe you shouldn't. But I'm like, it's one of those things that they played their guts out. They were gassed at the end. They were tired, and a team built around offense couldn't give them any help.
Okay, let me ask you this. I don't think it's built around offense anymore. I think it's built around complementary football. But let me ask you this. At the end of the season, we'll look back, and I'm not counting the Kent States of the world or the Chattanoogas of the world, but when we are at the end of the season, will we look back and say that Tennessee's offense won over or under 1.5 games for them? Because they're going to win at least one, right? They're based on offense. They're just too good. But is this a situation where Tennessee's defense has to carry the flag for the entire year?
No, I don't think they'll have to carry the flag for the entire year. I think they'll get it figured out. I think that we're bringing it back to the tackles real quick. We haven't talked enough about this. We got to give Lance Hurd way more blame than John Campbell. John Campbell was going up against one of the best edge rushers in the SEC. He had a much more difficult task than Lance Hurd did. And Lance Hurd just played god-awful in that game. And it's one of the most disgraceful, worst performances I've ever seen on an offensive tackle give. And he should be ashamed of himself for that. There, I said that. John Campbell, at least you could say, I don't know if John Campbell's good enough to go against the elite edge rushers of the SEC. He's not like Darnell Wright being able to shut down Will Anderson for a game. I never expect John Campbell to do that, and I don't think you do either.
No, but I would expect them to have somebody by year 4 in that place. So I think that, again, comes back to coaching and Josh Heupel. Stay tuned. Pat Dooley, he is fantastic. He'll give us some great insight. He works and writes for WRUF. He has also another duly noted podcast that features Steve Spurrier, and he's just great in providing a breakdown of the Florida Gators and their interesting 2-quarterback system. So hang tight with us with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Give me 2 minutes, and we'll be right back with you off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your man.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, let's go ahead and bring our special guest in here as I remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by the Hemp House. The Hemp House, that's right, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com, Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off, HOOK for 10% off. Pat Dooley joins us now. He writes for WRUF and also has a fantastic podcast with a great name, another duly noted podcast. Pat, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I actually said I'm going to do this outside just to show people that we aren't blowing away. We're in this calm before the storm right now, and it's beautiful. We're thinking about going to play golf. So, and then all hell's going to come.
Yeah, well, we had that happen, as I'm sure you know, in Northeast Tennessee. So our prayers and thoughts are with you guys. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, the worst part is that there's debris everywhere around. I mean, people have scraped it up and gotten it on those sidewalks, but they haven't been picked up yet. So all that debris is going to go flying through windows, and that's the scariest part of it right now, to be honest with you.
For those that don't know, is it a hurricane level yet that's supposed to hit?
Oh yeah, it got to be a 5 last night, and now I think it's back down to a 4. It's supposed to hit us as a 3, but it's supposed to hit Tampa. In fact, we have a whole family living with us this week because they had to get out of there. They had flooding during Helene, and they knew this was going to hit right at Tampa. Now it looks like it's gone a little south. We'll see how it all works out.
Gotcha, buddy. Well, let's we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers. Obviously, secondary would be football, but it is a big week. Tennessee, Florida, both teams need a win. And I was curious if you could dive in to Florida's 2-quarterback system, how that's kind of come along with DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz, and how you see it developing into the future.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does this week. Now, he went with this because, again, Mertz got a concussion the first game. Lagway would have played in that game anyway, and then Lagway had the second game because Mertz was out, and then they kind of shared it in the third game. So, now they've gone to this system of bringing Lagway in for the third series, which I don't like. I don't like that idea at all. I think that's what you do in preseason exhibition games, I think that you go with your quarterback. You have plays for your other quarterback that you can put him in and get his feet wet and everything, and have him do things. And you're going to keep him ready. It's almost like Billy Napier is coaching this season, like getting Lagway ready for next year, and assuming he is either one of them, they might both be gone. Who knows? because I mean that's the way it works in these days. If Napier gets fired, Lagway's falling right out the door. So it's working. I mean, look, Mertz is a really good quarterback, but Mertz can't throw the deep ball. Lagway can throw the deep ball as well as anybody in the country, but he needs to learn. He still is making mistakes, in terms of terminology, in terms of checks, stuff like that. So he's got to get better, and he's going to learn from Graham Mertz, who Napier said yesterday has a PhD in quarterback. So that's a good thing, but how is it going to translate to wins? That's going to be the big question, because if it doesn't, then they're going to have to find another coach.
Before we get to some more X's and O's, for those that don't know, Florida opened the season losing to Miami, beat Samford, which they should, then lost to Texas A&M, which is a team on the rise. Now they've beaten Mississippi State and UCF in consecutive weeks, and I'm just wondering where the pulse of this team is after following the game against the Aggies. We saw Scott Strickland's got to be gone signs and all this stuff hanging out, and it seemed like they weren't going to make it till the end of September. What's the feel around Gainesville now?
It's still, I don't want to say it's split 50-50, but there are still two camps, There's a camp that wants Napier out, and they want Strickland out, and they want the interim president, who's only been interim president for a month, out. They want me out. They want you out. They want everybody to get fired. All those people in polo shirts got to go. So, and then there's the other half, or not. I don't want to say it's half. There's another group of people that says, "Hey, let's play this out. Let's see how it goes. If we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to get the same result. You can't keep letting coaches go in 3 and 4 years." And then in the middle is the people go, "Hey, we just like going to games," So, I mean, it is pretty amazing. Florida, I think, has sold out 13 games for 3 losing seasons in the last 3 years. And that is, I get on the Gator fans all the time, right? But they've shown themselves post-COVID. They did get a COVID bump, I think. I think a lot of people realize how great it was to go to games again. But I do believe that they have shown up, and they have said, "Hey, we're gonna support this thing no matter what, and you guys need to start winning." Now, could it get ugly later in the year? We'll see. But it's pretty impressive to put 90-something thousand in there for UCF.
Agreed.
Pat, I'm noticing a bit of a difference in the vibe of what you said with using 2 quarterbacks. And does this show the lack of faith that you, Florida media, Florida fans, and everybody involved with Florida have in Billy Napier? Because one of the finest moments of Steve Spurrier's career was when he didn't just rotate quarterbacks every drive, he rotated them every play and went to beat Florida State in 1997. Now, he did the same thing at Tennessee the next year and lost. However, no one held him accountable for that. Does that show the lack of faith that there is in Billy Napier, that you just don't believe he's as equipped to manage 2 quarterbacks the way Spurrier was?
Well, nobody is. I mean, Spurrier's a different animal. But, I mean, the funny thing is he did the 2 quarterback system again against FSU and lost, too. And he ran it against Penn State in a bowl game and won. So he's 2-2 with the double quarterbacks every other play. And that was a bizarre situation. We'd heard the rumor about it before. But, yeah, now I will say this. The hero of that game was Fred Taylor, because he ran the ball so well. And I don't think rotating quarterbacks is a good idea for at this time of the year. At this point in the season, certainly at this point in his career, I think he's got to just settle on Mertz, have some gimmick plays ready for Lagway, and then it's almost like, remember when Herschel broke his wrist and he was in a cast, and they're playing Clemson to open the game, and all of a sudden he comes in the game in the third quarter. Everybody's freaking out, and they fake it to him and give it to the wide receiver on a wide receiver screen and runs for a touchdown. He wasn't going to catch the ball. His wrist was broken. But you had to follow him, And so I think, like, if Lagway lines up and goes in motion and you're like, what are they doing here? It can play with that's the kind of thing I'd like to see, rather than just, let's give him a series here. Let's give him a series here. I mean, I think all the experimentation should be over with. You know what you have, go win the football game. And it's not going to be easy, but that's what they've got to do.
Florida always has skilled position players. For those that haven't seen the Gators, who are the ones that they need to be aware of?
Well, they've got surprising large amount on, but they don't have big numbers. Shamiri DK is a really good receiver. Elijah Badger, a good receiver. They both got him in the portal. Aiden Mizell, you just don't know what you're getting every week. And then of course Montreal Johnson, who has been here for 3 years and has really run hard, run well. He's played well, and they've got a deep running back room because Jaden Ball's been really good, even picking up blitzes for a freshman. Trayon Webb's been really good. Jacoby Johnson's been really good. So they've got plenty of running backs. They got plenty of quarterbacks, and they got plenty of receivers. Now, can they stop anybody? That's going to be the question. And of course, what happened Saturday? You go, hey, look, our defense has finally figured it out. No. I don't think that's the case at all. I think UCF had two guys. They had a running back and they had a quarterback. They could run the ball, and that was pretty much their offense, and Florida stuffed it, and that was it.
So,
flipping to defense, Caleb, go right ahead.
Yeah, Pat, I wanted to turn to the defense because that's obviously been a big concern for Florida all year. Now, last week, Florida did hold UCF to 13 points. However, UCF seems to have way more problems with Gus Malzahn than we thought evident at the beginning of the year. So where do you think this Florida defense stands right now? Do you think they have truly turned a corner, or do you think UCF was just that bad?
I don't think they've turned a corner. I think they're about to find out that the corner is way down there, and it's a long way for them to get to, because now they're going to play up against all these really good offenses. I know that they struggled last week. Tennessee struggled last week. But then you go from there, and you got to play Georgia, and you got to play LSU, and you got to play Kentucky. They don't have a good offense, but so maybe the defense will look even better, over the next couple of weeks. Because I'm not sure about Tennessee right now. I thought Tennessee was I call them X Factor teams, where I can't tell you what I think they're going to do because I have no idea. And when they started fast and I looked at who they were playing, I go, okay, NC State, I was very impressed. NC State's turned out to be a bust this year. Obviously, the win over Oklahoma, don't forget Oklahoma's only got one loss, so that was a good win. And then to lose to Arkansas and save Sam Pittman's job, that was nice of them to do that.
Yeah.
But that was not – that offensive performance was certainly not excellent.
Agreed. Tyreek Sapp has been graded as a 33rd best edge defender in FBS, like an 82.9 Pro Football Focus grade. He had 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries, which I believe sacks is tied for the lead. How good is he as an edge guy? Because you've seen, going back to Javon Curse and perhaps even before, you've seen some of the best.
Yeah, Alex Brown. And even guys like Ja'Kai Polite, a very good player. John Grenard still in the NFL. So there have been some good edge players, and they really haven't had that for a while. Brenton Cox was a disaster here. He was a cancer in the locker room, and there's a reason why Georgia kicked him off the team. He's got a chance to be good. He's still pretty young, Tyreek is learning and he played both inside and outside last year. So the development outside took a little hit because he was having to play inside. You know how different that is. And the development inside took a hit because he was, trying to play some outside, and you have to get speed. So anyway, I think he's got a chance to be a pretty good player. They got to be better on the front four and even the front seven this year if they're going to be any good, because the secondary I think is okay. They've gotten better. They got to get Asa Turner back, who's been out with an injury from Washington, the transfer from Washington. I don't think he'll be back this week, but they need to get him back. He was supposed to be the leader of that defense and has not played since the first game. And then, Jason Marshall is playing like we thought Jason Marshall might eventually one day play, which apparently that day is today. But if they can play good enough in the front seven, that secondary just gets better. And if they can create turnovers, which they've not been able to do for 4 or 5 years, that gives you more balls on the right side of the field, and you score more points. All of a sudden goes, hey, they're scoring 45 points a game. Yeah, they intercepted 2 passes and ran them back. And that's what Florida has not had. They had 3 interceptions all of last year. 3. I could have gotten that many just standing in the middle of the field.
Yeah. Let me throw a double question at you. Poor journalism on my part, Pat. But how multiple is Florida's defensive front? Because that was a factor in the Arkansas game, according to many of Tennessee's players, especially pre-snap movement was an issue as Arkansas shifted. And then how much does Florida run that 3 down front that gave Tennessee some problems against the Razorbacks and the Sooners?
Yeah, they don't run it a ton, the 3 down front, but they do run it some. And that's the thing that I'm sure they'll look at the film and probably run more of it. I don't know. Yeah, the question would be, are you better set at defensive line or linebackers? Because if you don't have enough linebackers and you're playing a 3-man front, you can be in trouble. Now, I think didn't they run a 3-3 or 3-2-6 Arkansas on with 6?
Yeah, they kind of based out of a 3-3-5, and they did go what I would consider dime as well.
Yeah,
so that'd be a 3-3-6.
So I'm sure that Florida's going to look at that, and they have that in their arsenal, and they practice it. So they may use it, or they may just go, hey, look, we're just going to send the house and try to get this young quarterback ruffled but they haven't done a lot of that either. They haven't really, they got 5 sacks last week, which was great. And KJ Jefferson can be immobile sometimes, even though he's known for his running. It's only straight ahead running he's known for. He's not nifty with his feet. But to get 5 sacks was important because that gave him 13 for the year, and that's not bad. So it'll be interesting to see, that whether they run a lot of that 3-man front. But I'm sure that I don't think their practice schedule is going to get disrupted at all. So I'm sure they got plenty of time to work on it.
All right, buddy. Be safe down there with that level 5 hurricane coming. I'm glad you're inland, sir. And best to you, brother.
Well, hang in there too. And I know you guys have all been through this with the lean and that other storm that went through. So, hey, Mother Nature undefeated still.
Yeah. Do you want to hang out with us and we'll kick around global warming? That should make us a lot of money.
About that, yeah.
No, I don't want to do that.
We're talking about global warming and the border crisis.
Yes, that's great. And who are you voting for? All right, he's Pat Dooley. Check out his stuff on WRUF. He is on our Twitter feed. You can follow him. Pat, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. You know that, guys. See you, Caleb.
Have a good one, Pat.
Pat Dooley is fantastic there, and we really appreciate that look inside what Tennessee might face against Florida. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends at Hound Dogs of Knoxville, and they're very easy to find. If you want to go online, you can do that. Of course, they're right there in West Knoxville. Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. And they bring you, I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat, but they bring you, Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history. So what do you got, sir?
On this day 30 years ago, Peyton Manning had his second start at Tennessee, and it was the first time he really showed himself offensively. Tennessee, of all teams, played Arkansas and won 38-21, and Peyton Manning threw 2 touchdown passes to James Stewart and Mose Phillips, and that was really the moment where you could see Peyton Manning. It was the first time he started, made some big plays, and the team won the game because his first start was a 10-9 win, and they didn't really have him make any plays.
No. There you go. Good stuff. Again, this day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Again, Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Also, you can check out those fantastic TriStar hats. Use the promo code HOOKED to get 10% off at TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOK. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
All right, Caleb, let's get to a little Eli Drinkwitz, which we love to do. As Eli Drinkwitz, nobody made fun of him publicly like he did with Tennessee at SEC Media Days in 2022 when he called out the Vols during the annual press conference in Atlanta about the Tennessee's NCAA issues, which turned out to change the entire game and made, well, quite frankly, made Eli Drinkwitz look like a big goofball, which he's good at himself. So I think he's done that again. Caleb, what can you tell us about Eli Drinkwitz as we encourage you to hit that like button? And we always like making fun of Eli. Why?
You suck, you jackass.
Okay, what do we got, Caleb?
All right, so this all started last week. Connor Cook from Missouri was asked about the 12th man whole thing at Texas A&M and Kyle Field. I haven't gone to Kyle Field yet. That's a stadium I really do need to go visit, and I'm ashamed that I haven't been there yet. But I believe everything about that stadium being loud, Dave. Everybody who's told me they've been there has said it's as loud as you can think the way it's set up.
John Adams said that to me. Several people have said that to me.
Yeah. So Connor Cook decided.
Connor Cook is, for those that don't know,
plays for Missouri's quarterback. Basically decided he would say publicly that the noise that they play in practice is probably louder than the 12th man at Texas A&M. By the way, you guys are the most fraudulent, undefeated team in football at this moment. You're going to play Texas A&M on the road. That's getting better under Mike Elko. Maybe you need to back off a little bit from saying anything. Okay, this was like an Eric Ainge moment all over again, except Eric Ainge didn't actually play for Tennessee in that moment. Okay, so this already looked bad. Well, the night before the game, Missouri wide receiver Theo Weiss Jr. was seemingly gifted a blanket with a warning that Texas A&M cornerback Will Lee, who was known as the blanket, that's what they say because he covers receivers, would shut him down. So Missouri is like, someone put a blanket in our locker room. This is trash talk. Well, I'm going to play what Mike Elko said when asked about the blanket after the game. And this is just a real quick 17-second.
These comments brought to you by Peak IV Hydration, South Knoxville and Sevierville. Wide range of IV treatments. You can also order the patches online. Over 100 5-star reviews. And with the patches, you can get that hydration or energy throughout the day. I'll share it on our chat. All right, Caleb, fire away.
All right, and here's what Mike Elko said after that.
And have you gathered any intel on the blanket and the card for Weiss early? And how did you feel like he responded?
My suggestion would be you guys should go ask Eli where that came from, because I have a strong feeling that came from the other side and had nothing to do with Texas A&M, Will Lee, or anybody over here. So you should point that one on the other side.
That's absolutely true. Uncle Dave's story. So the Dallas Cowboys supposedly sent, this is back when NFL rivalries were intense, like Tennessee, Florida, right? The Dallas Cowboys supposedly sent a wreath, like a funeral wreath, to the Redskins locker room. The Redskins came out and thumped the Cowboys. This would be in the 80s. Everybody thumped the Cowboys in the 80s. And as it turns out, it was a Washington fan that sent it to the locker room. So there's no doubt in my mind that Eli was trying to play gamesmanship to the nth degree and sent a blanket to his own locker room.
And made it sound like it was Texas A&M. This is the Jussie Smollett version of football games, by the way. And where you fake Jussie Smollett, you know, the guy who told the story about he claimed that he was beat up in Chicago on a racialized attack and turned out that he paid people to beat him up themselves so he could get more sympathy publicly, and faked everything. So it's that. Eli Drinkwitz is the Jussie Smollett now of college football. He faked if this is true, if you're saying it's true, Dave, think about what this means. He faked Texas A&M trash talking so he could publicly pretend that Missouri was a victim of some unfair trash talk. Is that not the most pathetic thing in the history of patheticness ever done by a pathetic head coach?
Yeah, and it's also an indication that he didn't feel good about the game. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Missouri was probably favored headed into that game, right?
No, Texas A&M was favored by like 2.5.
Okay, but you would think, being undefeated, you and I know, because we've seen both teams play, that Missouri, but you would think the average fan would think Missouri is the better team. So why do you ruffle feathers unless you're desperate? Unless Eli Drinkwitz knew from the get that he didn't have a college football playoff contender. And I'm just curious, how would Tennessee fans respond to this? To me, it's just silly. How would Alabama fans respond to this? Any of the traditional schools and not the new schools in the SEC, this would be embarrassing and laughable. Is it either for Eli, or does his fan base think it's super cool?
Well, he's probably going to deny it till the end of time because it's so embarrassing and laughable and pathetic, and he can use plausible deniability because no one's going to be able to prove that it came from him, even though you and I believe it came from him. I think that's one of the most embarrassing.
We also know, though, that we talked about Missouri, how they are incredibly sometimes difficult on the football team because it's a journalism proud school. So I'll tell you what, after I heard that, I would be digging up where that blanket came from. And I would be looking for UPS receipts, especially in this day and age where all practices are closed and I've got an extra 10 hours to spend. Because it used to be I had to sit and watch 2.5 hours of practice every day, Caleb, and you're lucky to get one little bit of information a week out of that. But now that nobody does that anymore, this is the story that people should be working on. Somebody that is either going to Mizzou, covers Mizzou, whatever, should be digging this up. This would be great. An absolute fantastic story.
I agree. And by the way, we know, why do you think Mike Elko said that? Typically a coach would be like, we're looking into it. They would know. Mike Elko went straight to, they should look into their own side. He knows. He's the Ivy League grad. He's the smart one. He probably already put details together to be like, there's no way somebody on our team did this.
Well, but it's even easier than that. Like if you're a smart coach, if you're a decent coach and your players respect you, which I think we think that of Mike Elko. He seems like a stand-up dude to me. We'll see if he's SEC ready, but I think we both think he's a stand-up dude. All you do, Caleb, it's the same thing when a player gets arrested. You go to your player and you look him right in the eye and you say, did you send that blanket? And if he says no, you believe him because you have that bond. And it's the same thing when a player gets in trouble. The players that have always gotten in the most trouble from one incident are those that lied to their head coach. And as a matter of fact, it hasn't happened often. Usually when you sit down in that chair before your head coach, you tell the truth. I think the one exception might have been James Banks. And that tells you right there. So I think he knew. I think he went to the blanket, whoever that guy was on Texas A&M's team.
Will Lee.
Yeah. And I think he said, hey, here's the dealio. Did you do this or not? And when he said he didn't, now it could have been a Texas A&M fan, right?
I mean, it could have been, but you're right. I mean, the way Mike Elko said it sounds like he was so confident. He seems like he's got enough intel to know that this came from somebody on Missouri. And you're right. Missouri is a great journalism school. Someone needs to dig this up because I think if it's true, I mean, again, I would say I kind of hope it is true, but I would also say for his sake, I hope it's not. Because if Eli Drinkwitz planted that blanket for just to like pretend to be a victim of trash talk, it's the most pathetic thing ever done in the history of football. He becomes officially, and I'll say it, he would be the Jesse Smollett of college football.
Stand on business, Mike. That's my Eli Drinkwitz impression. Let's bring John Adams in here real quick to get a quick preview. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, guys.
Oh, I didn't mean to wake you. John, the biggest goofball in the SEC, if it's not Eli Drinkwitz, it's who? And that means it's Eli Drinkwitz. It means there's no competition.
I have a problem with Billy Napier's hairdo.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
The goofiest thing in the SEC is Eli Drinkwitz, Billy Napier's hairdo. Any other direction you want to go there? He's thinking so hard. Caleb, feel free to jump in there. How about?
Well, John, do you believe Mike Elko or Eli Drinkwitz? Do you think Eli Drinkwitz planted that blanket for a sympathy story?
I do. I do.
I think that's very possible. Yeah. I tend not to believe any coaches. So, I mean, which one's more believable? I'd probably say Elko.
Okay. Biggest goofball in the SEC is, and Caleb, put that on our poll question, and you can go ahead and include some of the goofiness that they have done. John's appearance brought to you by Joe Neubert Collision Center. Neubert Collision Center is absolutely fantastic. Neubert Collision Center is something a little bit different that you don't see elsewhere because they've been around for 50 years. Neubert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNeubertCollision.com, JoeNeubertCollision.com. In 2 minutes, more with John off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
John, I got a great back workout in this morning, and I bring that up because I always think of you on my heavy lift days, because I remember John saying one time, I bet you're one of those guys at the gym that grunts a lot. And yeah, I am. I don't think, I mean, that's a little judgmental on your behalf, John. And I think it's hurtful. It's hurtful. Hit like and subscribe if you think John was out to hurt Dave. How about you, Caleb?
Are you still running, Dave?
Things that make you go, like Master P back in the day.
Oh.
It was a little before your time, John. John, can I get you to slide a little to your left?
Thankfully.
A little to your left, maybe?
You mean
Can you slide a little to your left? to your right, whichever. There you go. Look at that guy all centered up. It only took a month. All right, John. So let's go ahead and dive into a couple of topics.
For the record, Dave, that's to my right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it might be. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this. And I want this to be our poll question. It's not today's tough question because we already did that. And it's worth discussing after the way Nico Iamaleava played on Saturday. Is Nico more like Joe Milton III or Hendon Hooker, that we believe is not a second or a third or a junior or anything? He's just Hooker. I'm actually the second. But let me ask you, John, is Nico more like Joe Milton III or Hendon Hooker? We'll put that on the poll question. We'll get your thoughts in the comments. John?
I think he's more like Hendon Hooker, but against Arkansas, he looked more like Joe Milton.
Can't argue with that. Caleb, what say you?
I think in terms of his profile and ability, he's much more like Hendon Hooker. But in terms of his mentality, and I criticize Joe Milton's mentality a lot of times, he's much closer to Joe Milton. And the truth is, it's even worse because I think I never saw Joe Milton panic like that. I did see him panic to run out of bounds one time, but I never saw Joe Milton so scared that he couldn't handle a snap on the final drive of a game. I mean, that was the very definition of sweaty palms.
Okay. Guys, no. He's more like Hendon Hooker all around. I appreciate where we are here, that Tennessee did not play well. Nico did not play well. It's a great topic of conversation. But, guys, when it's all said and done, this guy's going to be much more like Hendon Hooker. Will he put up the same numbers? I don't know. But he's going to be much more like Hendon Hooker than Joe Milton, in my humble opinion.
But, Dave, one thing going into the season, I don't think anybody questions Nico's talent. He makes throws that a lot of guys in the NFL can't make, and nobody questions his arm talent. However, we didn't know how he would respond in pressure situations. He's never been in them. Every game he's played in has been one-sided. You could say, well, the Oklahoma game was not really. That was the final score is misleading there. It's not as though Tennessee was on the brink of defeat, but it was clearly on the brink. Yeah,
but John, in defending your argument, he did have 2 strip sacks in the first big challenge of his career.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that was still early in the game. I'm talking about game on the line type stuff. And throughout the Arkansas game, indecisiveness was apparent with him. Now, a lot of that's not all his fault. The coaches were indecisive too. They didn't adjust to what Arkansas was doing. You can get into the offensive line and all that kind of stuff too. But one thing I thought about Nico, one of the reasons I thought he had such great potential going into the season, his athletic ability, his running ability, his elusiveness for a guy 6'6". When things broke down around him, when things didn't go well, when the offensive tackles fanned on their blocks one after another, when the game plan was questionable and there was no adjusting on the coaching parts, that's when you look for somebody to rise above that, the super talented quarterbacks, to make a play when the plays called aren't working. And he couldn't do that.
So let me ask another quarterback comparison question. And I want to update everybody on the poll question. It's almost exactly 50-50. Is Nico Iamaleava more like Joe Milton or Hendon Hooker? So you touched on something here, John. My question is, have we seen enough of Nico to know that he can't be a Johnny Manziel or Tim Tebow, a guy that's just going to make a play in the clutch? Because you and I both agreed, and then you backtracked a little bit, that when Joe Milton jumped out of bounds against Ole Miss, we both said that guy's never going to be a clutch guy. Have you seen enough where you can say to yourself, I don't think Nico's going to be a clutch guy?
No, Joe Milton was more experienced. than Nico. And Nico has more natural ability. So I wouldn't say that yet, but that performance raises questions. He talked about trying to explain that last play. There's no explanation for it. He talked about the ball was slipping out of his hands. A quarterback, even at junior high level, has to know the situation, the circumstances, down, distance, and clock. What can he do? Nico's options were clearly limited there. His only real option was to chunk the ball into the end zone and hope for the best. Maybe one of his guys would make a play, rise above the defense and make a catch. But to just keep drifting toward the sidelines with the clock ticking, it was a dreadful decision. And that's not, you can't say, well, he's a redshirt freshman. No, you should learn that going into JV ball.
No, to even put yourself in that position before when I think the ball slipped was not good. You got to let it go before then. Caleb, once you jump in here, John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center.
45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right, Caleb, go.
All right, guys, I'm going to pull up two graphics for you guys. Y'all have watched the ball a lot longer than I have, and you guys tell me if this is indicative of just being a fresh. The final play is inexcusable. There's no he's a freshman. You're right. That's JV ball. That's peewee football. You learn not to do that. But he missed two throws on each of the final two plays, and I want to show you guys this. I want you guys to tell me if this is just a young guy or you got to see this. And so the first one is the second to last play, and I'm pulling this up now. Do you guys see Dylan Sampson wide open right here?
Yes.
Here's Nico. Here's Dylan Sampson. If he dumps it off to Sampson, that is a touchdown. Clear as day. No one's catching him.
Okay, let me ask you this. At what point is this in the game? Second to last play of the game?
Second to last play of the game.
Okay, I'm going to sound like a Nico apologist, John, but let me throw this out there. I'm going to defend Nico in that I think he's looking downfield. Do I have an argument there? I mean, I think the last thing he's thinking is throw it into the flats with that little bit of time left.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the last option. You're asking a guy's got to make quick reads. And again, you can't eliminate the pressure factor in the decision-making process. I mean, so yeah, you look at that graphic and throw the ball to Dylan Sampson, but given the situation going into the play, I can see why he would be looking downfield and maybe not even get to that option, thinking I've got to throw the ball downfield. But then that line of thinking should have carried over to the last play when there's no option other than to throw the ball downfield. That's your best option. So he's probably thinking on this play, I got to throw it downfield. He didn't think that on the last play.
Okay, before I go to the next one, the only reason I disagree with you guys is because to not think this is an option, I'm like, okay, well then why is he even out there? Why is Dylan Sampson even running that route?
That's a fair point. Yeah, maybe he could block somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So that clearly is something that they should know about. So the next one is, and this is, so I think this one's more inexcusable, but the next one I'm going to show you, and this is much more pressure-based because you guys are right. Nico was under a lot of pressure during this one because John Campbell and Lance Hurd, and I keep saying this, should maybe consider giving their scholarship money back after how they played on Saturday. But this is when he rolled out, right when he was about to run. I'm going to move the arrow on my mouse. You guys see Chaz Nimrod right here?
Yes.
Here's Nico. Here's Chaz Nimrod.
Yeah.
If you're running and needing to make a play, you got to make that throw, right?
John?
Yeah, What are you saying here, Caleb?
Caleb, I'm having a little bit of. You're talking about in the back?
In the back corner, that's Chaz Nimrod, right here.
I think that's an incredibly difficult throw across your body, but I think it also speaks to. Again, I'm going to defend Nico in this. I think it speaks to Nico has been taught not to throw across his body. I, in some ways, think that he's been overcoached. So I think he could have seen that and said, no, I never throw across my body because I've been coached not to do so.
It's the final play of the game, though. You got to make something happen. And this is
Oh,
your
maybe
best
that's
chance.
when the ball's, I don't know. I'm not arguing that. Maybe that's when the ball's slipping out of his hand, John. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think we get back. One of the things I liked so much about Nico when I saw him in the Citrus Bowl, I thought he had great instincts. I saw that in his running when he got down on the goal line. And this passing is obviously a different thing, but the same thing applies in a way. An instinctive type player. He didn't look instinctive against Arkansas. And part of that could be attributed to he was baffled by Arkansas's scheme, or he was trying, you say overcoached. Maybe he's not letting his ability take over. Especially in the Arkansas game, it looked as though he's thinking like, what am I supposed to do here? But because I'm seeing that in the running, it's almost when he starts to scramble, instead of just taking off, he's thinking, okay, do I want to go down here? He doesn't look decisive in his movement.
John, let me ask you a question that came up earlier in the program. Get your thoughts on this. I argue that they should simplify things for at least a game for Nico. And that when he hits that back foot, he has one read and he either goes to that receiver or he runs the ball. And he does so decisively. We've seen Nico run the ball well. He did not do so against Arkansas. And I think it's because he was unsure of everything going on around him, in part because of the offensive tackles. But what do you think of me simplifying things for Nico against Florida?
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think he ran decisively against Oklahoma either, but I attributed that in part to a real shaky turf. The field was a mess, and he didn't look sure-footed in his running, but he looked the same way then against Arkansas. So maybe the field of play had nothing to do with it. Yeah, simplification makes sense. But then we're kind of getting away from what's supposed to be the Josh Heupel offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, should Tennessee go with two tight ends?
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I understand that. I mean, that makes sense in light of what we just saw. But then it seems odd to me that 3 seasons and almost 3.5 seasons into the Josh Heupel era, this offense that we thought was so spectacular, that created so many problems for a defense. It made a defense look so unsure of itself. Well, we're not seeing that anymore. So now we need to go to a simplified offense and more of a running game. So what made this program and this offense special, now we're saying doesn't really work. Isn't that a bit troublesome?
Yeah, it's very troublesome. And I think it, at the end of the day, comes down to recruiting, the lack of recruiting and offensive tackles. I think it's pretty much as simple as that. Caleb, get us a poll question update, if you don't mind. Our poll question today is brought to you by our fantastic friends who are working on one of my vehicles as we speak. Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports and Dave said hello. What's the poll question and where does it stand right now, Caleb?
So the poll question at the moment is Nico Iamaleava is more like Hendon Hooker or Joe Milton. 54% say Hendon Hooker and 46% say Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Ouch. Does this surprise you? It's close, John?
Yeah, but based on what I saw against Arkansas, it depends on what your focus is. If you're thinking overall, you're thinking potential, you're looking back on other games, that's one thing. But when you just look at what just happened in that game, I had a number of emails on that very thing. Felt like they were watching a rerun of Joe Milton. That's not a good thing.
you see the QR code right there. If you want to become a member of Hooker's Corner, you can read the latest on Lagonza Hayward, who appears to be reconsidering his Tennessee commitment. Just $9.98 a month. Also, you'll be registered to win our monthly grand prize, and that'll be a autographed mini helmet. It'll be autographed by Dylan Sampson, and that's brought to you by Sports Treasures. Sports Treasures, over 5 million sports treasures. Again, over 5 million sports treasures in North Knoxville. They've been around for over 35 years. And don't forget about Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. As long as you can even be a free member. As long as you're a free member, you can qualify to win a Garmin, brought to you by Rick Terry, when we hit 8,000 subscribers, which shouldn't be too long, as we're about to cross that 6,500 mark if we haven't already. So we appreciate Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition, and they are phenomenal. So we'll change gears a little bit. Again, want to thank Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design, as Caleb and I are going to take John on in a little 4 downs. How confident do you feel, John, that you can manage 4 downs with us?
I'm not really worried about it either way, win or lose. Won't affect my life.
Well, I don't know.
He's a life champion still, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Got a 5-star heart.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm worried about is falling down and hitting my eye on my helmet.
That's right. 4 Downs is brought to you by our friends at Work Trucks. 4 Downs is right now Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, so we want to ask this question right off the top. Did Tennessee's secondary get exposed? Not exposed. What would that be? Did Tennessee's secondary get exposed? And it's 4 downs. And we get to it right now. Coop, what should people do?
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong guy. 4 downs, brought to you by our good friends at Work Trucks. We'll begin again. As Cooper, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
First down is this, John.
Coop here. First down.
Did Tennessee's secondary get exposed against Arkansas?
I thought it did somewhat. That was a questionable area going into the season. And we saw something in the first 4 games. Granted, Tennessee had a great pass rush, but I thought the secondary played well. However, the secondary wasn't really tested. I didn't know that Arkansas would test it that well, but Arkansas threw for 297 yards. I give Bobby Petrino a lot of credit for, we've been talking about Tennessee's offensive game plan, flawed as it was against Arkansas. I give Bobby Petrino on the other side a lot of credit. I thought he did a nice job with Talon Green. And the secondary didn't really make any plays. And that would have helped Tennessee's cause quite a bit.
Caleb, was Tennessee's secondary exposed against Arkansas?
No, because I thought Tennessee secondary, we agreed it was questionable. And I think we also agreed that going into the year that this wasn't the type of secondary that was going to win you games. We just thought it would be better than 2023, 2022, where it would be serviceable. And I did think it was somewhat serviceable in this game. I mean, guys, Arkansas scored 19 points. And that last touchdown was because the front 7 was so gassed because they were on the field all the time because the offense couldn't get anything going. So I can't knock the secondary too much, because if this were last year's team, or particularly the 2022 team, given the flow of that game, if that had happened in 2022, that secondary would have given up 7 touchdowns.
Well, a counterpoint to that, Caleb, I thought Arkansas left a lot on the table. And I mean, Talon Green is not an elite passer. He completes about 53% of his passes. There were passes that were there where the receiver was open and he underthrew them. He just didn't make the plays. Or one play should have been for a touchdown. So I just think a better passer would have really, to use Dave's word, exposed Tennessee's secondary. much more than Taylor Green. But that's as well as I've seen Taylor Green, as productive as I've seen him throwing the ball. And I've watched Arkansas in 3 or 4 games.
Was Tennessee's secondary exposed against Arkansas is our poll question. Yes, nearly 300 passing yards versus Arkansas allowed. No other issues afoot. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. Tennessee's defensive secondary, no interceptions against Arkansas when you do have a rather erratic quarterback. John, how disconcerting was that?
Well, I just think against Arkansas, you would think Tennessee would make some plays based on Taylor Green's history. He made some nice throws. I'm not saying he has ability, but he's been very erratic throwing the ball. He was that way at Boise State. He's this way now. I thought he's better rolling out, and I thought Tennessee didn't do a good job of containing him. That's on the front end, not the back end. Arkansas doesn't have elite receivers. They're just okay.
Tennessee only has 2 interceptions this year. One came off the Will Brooks tip interception, which is kind of fluky. Caleb, is that par for a course, but for the course because the front has controlled the game so much? Or do you say to yourself, just 2 interceptions? I mean, that's 12th best in the SEC. Only Mississippi State is worse. It's not good if they're supposed to be this ball hawking group of defensive backs that we've talked about.
Well, no, I don't think it's as concerning as we thought, because we thought the safeties would be the bigger concern for Tennessee going into the year, and the safeties is where you usually get your interceptions, and the corners are the ones that try to shut down the field. Jamal McCoy has one of the picks. He's not going to get a lot more picks the rest of the year. Nobody's going to throw his way. And I mean, I think he's that good. And so I think because the corners are the stronger part of this secondary, I think that means that your interceptions aren't going to be that common.
Portions of the program brought to you by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated, conveniently located at 10629 Hardin Valley Road, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. The link is right below. We're on 3rd down, correct, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
I'm going to give you the answer to this one. Where's Boo Carter?
You want to take that, John?
John?
I don't know where he is.
I mean, not at the very moment, but
no, I know. But when you say that, I mean, did he even play against Arkansas? I don't remember his name being called.
I just pulled his name up on Twitter, and there's a picture of him in on one play at Arkansas, but that's all I got.
Well, here's the issue with Boo Carter. I mean, it was pretty obvious that Tennessee was trying to make certain players happy in the Chattanooga game, in which Boo Carter played extensively against his hometown team. So did Ethan Davis. But I'm going to tell you right now that he's a little immature, and I think Tennessee is a little bit conservative because they are loaded up, as they believe, and Caleb said, for this year. John, I think Tennessee's coaching staff, which I'll get to, has been a little bit too conservative across the board.
Yeah, that's fair. Tennessee, look, you go back overall, when you're talking about coaching overall, and this goes back to offense, I guess, but even in the Oklahoma game, I understood Josh Heupel's strategy. I thought it was founded in fact, and it was well-based against Oklahoma. A weak Oklahoma offense, so you're not really threatened by the Oklahoma offense. Oklahoma's offensive line was bunged up, so was its receiving core. So he thought he could play a very conservative game against Oklahoma, and that worked. But it's almost like the same thing applied against Arkansas, which was better offensively, which not only had its offensive line was better, its running backs were better, and its quarterback was better. So
who played? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, it was just like Tennessee kind of was playing not to lose.
Agreed. Boo played 39 snaps. And if you remember, Christian Harrison was knocked out of the game for a little bit. So I'm sure Boo went in for him. John, our fourth down question is going to be.
I just want to point out before we get to fourth down, Boo also generated some headlines. Apparently, he was chirping with a lot of the Arkansas players before the game, and he put on his socials last week B to A Part 5. Apparently, that stands for Belt to A Word Part 5.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
He was talking.
That wasn't B too bright at all. I did see that last week. The guy has the maturity of Caleb's 3-month-old.
That 3-month-old is very mature, and he's 4 now. Okay, he's 4 months old.
4 months old. I'm sorry. By the way, if you want to throw some cash into the super chat, that will go to Caleb Calhoun's son Quincy, who is 4-month-old, his college fund, assuming that Caleb doesn't gamble it away. There is no gamble when you go with work trucks, if we can pull that up. All about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle available. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips. Trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app-pod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks, Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham, for the entire inventory. Go online to worktrucksllc.com with an X, worktrucksllc.com. Don't chance your future in business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time. Worktrucksllc.com. They'll find the perfect vehicle you have to have. They'll fit your needs to a T when they outfit it. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right, here's the $1 million question. Whether or not you believe Tennessee's secondary was exposed to get against Arkansas, I think we would all agree that the skill position players are better for Florida, that Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway, despite the fact that they're pushing them in and out, which could affect their effectiveness, I believe are better as a combo unit than what Tennessee faced in Taylor Green. So, John, can the Gators exploit Tennessee's secondary?
Well, maybe. I think it will depend on how well they can handle Tennessee's pass rush. Arkansas's offensive line played better than I thought it would. I would have never thought going into that game that Arkansas's offensive line would outperform Tennessee's. I'd watched Arkansas earlier, but it did. Florida doesn't have the running backs that Arkansas did, and Graham Mertz doesn't throw the deep ball. And he's not the running threat that Taylor Green is. He has the ability, which he did last season against Tennessee, is kind of throw those short passes, control the ball and the clock, run the clock, but with short passes and move the chains. I don't think of. I noticed who was the guy. Said a freshman wide receiver for Florida, Eli Badger, I think's his name. I wasn't really that familiar with him. He played really well against UCF. I was watching the replay. I'm wondering if they will get back. Who's their star receiver that was hurt? Is it Eugene Wilson? Is that right? I don't know.
Sounds right.
He was a freshman last year, had 6 catches early in the game, and then and was injured and sat out the rest of the game against Tennessee. Florida still won. I think Florida's problems could be on defense against Tennessee, but what we saw in the secondary, Graham Mertz is extraordinarily accurate. The last 2 games, he's completed about 85% of his passes, and DJ Lagway in much less time and fewer passes has also been accurate. So yeah, that is a concern.
No, I would agree with that. We'll get John's prediction before he is all done on the program. We appreciate his appearance, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Coming up, how bad SEC losses are undermining several SEC schools and their college football playoff chances. That'll be Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Also, remind you that Asia Cafe, you can treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family secrets. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org, AsiaCafe.org, and they have that Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix instant white coffee that I love. Been around for 100 years. It's Philip Lim. It's right over my shoulder. It's carried the torch as 3-generation family business. Started to expand the Lim dynasty right here in Knoxville, Tennessee at Asia Cafe, AsiaCafe.org. So, what losses by SEC teams have most undermined the SEC from being able to get the maximum amount of teams into the college football playoffs? Because there have been some ugly losses. Bank on It, coming up, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better. Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, $24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, $26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Welcome back. Let me start out by this, if I may. And we're going to get to Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. And it has to do with the SEC perhaps cannibalizing itself. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Banks for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. CBTN.com, CBTN.com. I banked with them for over 20 years. John, how many teams did you think at the beginning of the season from the SEC would make the college football playoff? Okay.
It's a lot, I know,
So
but that's what I thought. I looked at the schedules. Some of the lesser teams had really favorable schedules. So I could see 5 teams making it.
Okay. So bank on it, brought to you by a commercial bank. 5 won't make it because the SEC is beating up on itself.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
John, do you still believe it will be 5? And what do you think of the SEC at this point in the season only having 1 team that's undefeated?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be 5 now. I think it'll be 4. But the thing is, the bad losses that really affect this conference that I didn't see happening in preseason. Of course, upsets always happen, but when you go down a team's schedule in preseason, you check off games: win, loss, toss up. I thought LSU would beat Southern Cal, and now that becomes a bad loss. It impacts the SEC because Southern Cal has lost to the row your boat boys of PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Southern Cal's now got 2 losses. That hurts. Then you go to the Texas A&M game against Notre Dame. A&M played dreadfully offensive in that game. Granted, Notre Dame has a good defense, but Connor Wegman, quarterback, was awful throwing the ball. That was a game A&M need to win, not just for itself, but it really would have helped the SEC. So those are outside the conference. Those are 2 significant losses when you look at the playoff picture. Then you go to the other games: Tennessee losing to Arkansas, Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. Those were all double-digit favorites. Alabama was practically a prohibitive favorite, 22-23 against Vanderbilt. Tennessee 13.5, 14. Ole Miss 17.5 against Kentucky. Those were very costly losses for the SEC.
It's true, Caleb, and they were very costly losses. Let me start with you. Do you still think the SEC can get 5 teams in, or if you had a bet on it, would it be 4 at this point? We know if you bet on it, that it'll be incorrect.
Wow, John. It's been a very bad first half of the college football season for me, just like the SEC. I would bet on 4 or less, and honestly, it's one of those things where I will say, like, guys, I could say I have a little more national perspective sometimes. So a lot of times when people get annoyed by the SEC talk, they're wrong. The data shows the SEC is the best conference historically. They load up the NFL. But one of the things that frustrates them, and I see their point this year, and it's the first time I could say it applies this year, is when the SEC, when there are major upsets within the SEC, a lot of SEC fans were like, man, that's just proof the SEC is so tough. They're beating each other up. It's the opposite this time around. It actually makes the SEC look not that good, because Alabama losing to Vanderbilt isn't evidence of Vanderbilt all of a sudden being better this year. It's evidence of Alabama not being that good this year, because Vanderbilt, guys, we're forgetting this, lost to Georgia State. They didn't lose to Georgia. They didn't lose to Georgia Tech. They lost to Georgia State, and then they beat Alabama. And Tennessee lost to Arkansas, who, yes, is 2 plays away from undefeated, but did lose to Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State's a middle of the pack Big 12 team. We're not talking top 4 in the Big 12 this year. So you're right. You bring up Notre Dame with Texas A&M, who then goes and beats Missouri. And by the way, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. You bring up LSU losing to USC. Like you said, loses, to PJ Fleck. That's going to be in a segment we're about to talk about soon, because Lincoln Riley cost him that game. But I mean, the SEC it's not that the SEC is beating up on each other because they're all so tough. It looks to the national media like they're beating up on each other because nobody's that good, honestly.
I think so, Caleb. You go back and this was a win, but I watched South Carolina in the season opener against Old Dominion.
I did too.
Very fortunate to win that game, and then it turns around and beats Kentucky by 25 points, and Kentucky upsets Ole Miss. I agree with you. The SEC is not as good as I thought. One thing that helps the SEC, though, you look at the Big Ten. I don't see the Big Ten getting but 3 teams in the playoff. Right now, it looks like Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad you said that, because if Indiana makes it, it's just awful.
Indiana's undefeated, guys.
I know it's undefeated now, but it is Indiana, and there are tougher games down the road, I would think. But it's a good team. It's a good team to bet on.
Okay, so let me ask you guys these teams right now. I'm going to go based off the Athletic, and we had this gentleman on yesterday. His name's Ostermock. He does a great job of laying out the potential bracket. So here's who he has in right now. Alabama. So let me ask you guys this question. If the College Football Playoff Committee television show, which is a television show, if it were on tonight, would Alabama be in?
Yes.
Hey now.
Caleb?
Yeah, they'd be in.
Hey now.
Agreed. Ole Miss, would they be in?
I'm a hard no. I'm a hard no.
No.
John?
No.
That's crazy.
Wow. Okay. I think they would. All right. Georgia.
Dave, when you're saying they're in right now, based on what they've done right now.
Based on what they've done.
Okay, yeah. Georgia would be in now, yes.
Hey now.
All right. Texas.
Hey now.
I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Tennessee is the first team out, according to The Athletic. And I think he also factors in strength of schedule moving forward. So if you had to bet right now that Tennessee makes the college football playoff based off what you've seen to this point in the season, John, what would you say?
You remember Jim Morrow's rant on playoffs?
Playoffs.
Playoffs. Yeah, but I still like Tennessee's schedule, but it's got to beat Alabama and Georgia now. So I think it's hard to foresee Tennessee making the playoff.
I still have them. I still think they'll make it, but I wouldn't have them in if the season ended today. Dave, you can cry all you want. Indiana would be ahead of Tennessee right now if the college football.
I'm not crying. No, I know.
I know you hate Indiana, but
no, they wouldn't be at this point. My point is, it's fun to talk about right now, but they're not going to be in.
No, I don't think they're in now, but I do. I guess I'm waffling on the question, but I still think Tennessee can make the playoff. I don't like Georgia's chances of making the playoff. Right now it's in, but what I've seen of Georgia, I don't think it wins at Texas, and then it's still got to play Tennessee and Ole Miss.
True. Okay, so are you saying only 4 make it? And by the way, the poll question is on our YouTube page. Would you bet Vols could make the? I'm going to change that. Go ahead. How many teams do you think get in? John, let me ask you this.
I think 4 get in. But then when I start looking at what teams I think will get in, I don't have 4. I mean, Alabama and Texas, certainly, but then I'm unsure about everybody else. Could Georgia get in at 9-3?
The one thing I'll say in the SEC's defense, as we're saying all this, and I think they could, is that the SEC has traveled to play more marquee games than the Big Ten has this year. Now, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games versus the SEC's 8, but Ohio State played the worst out-of-conference schedule in the history of out-of-conference schedules. I mean, that was a terrible out-of-conference schedule. And the same applies to Indiana. Whatever you want to say about Michigan, they have 2 losses, but, I mean, at least Michigan played Texas. So I think that could help the SEC.
Yeah, but the Michigan is not that good. I think a problem for the SEC right now is Notre Dame. I don't see how you can put in a team that's not in a conference and lost to Northern Illinois. I just don't. But that win over Texas A&M at Kyle Field looms large for Notre Dame. If it can win out, and see, I didn't think early in the year, I didn't think it would beat Southern Cal at the end of the year. But now what I've seen of Southern Cal, yeah, it's very beatable. So that could work against the SEC.
Yep. Lincoln Riley's done a fantastic job of making himself an NFL hire. That's about all he's done. I mean, because the NFL, I think, wants these guys that can throw it around and don't play defense.
Well, I mean, how well is it throwing it around right now?
Really not. It's really not as good as the service by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. cityheatandair.com. cityheatandair.com. It is Last Look, brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. And it's our favorite, the Football IQ segment is coming up, where John and Caleb act so smart. So smart. But first, the stat of the day. Caleb, what do you got for us?
Well, I told you guys yesterday that Arkansas was Tennessee's third straight loss as a top 5 team to an unranked opponent on the road, because the last one was 98 Vanderbilt, 41-10. I'm taking it a step further today. Tennessee has not beaten an unranked opponent on the road with a winning record since since Vanderbilt of 1956.
Yeah, how about that, John? You want to take some of that?
Say that again.
Tennessee, when they're a top 5 team facing an unranked team on the road with a winning record, they haven't won since 1956 against Vanderbilt.
Tennessee went on the. Say it one more time.
Okay, Tennessee, when they are in the top 5 and they are playing an unranked team on the road, and said unranked team has a winning record, has beaten them every time, has lost every single time since Vanderbilt 1956.
And also, cumulus clouds were prevalent on that day.
That's right.
Increase the odds.
And that's barely even a road game, because Vanderbilt is in Nashville. So,
well, first of all, Tennessee, I guess when you think about it, how often has Tennessee been in the top 5?
Not a lot. Not a lot. Caleb, give us a tease on our Football IQ segment, as it'll be brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Is Josh Heupel going to make this list?
Oh yes, Josh Heupel unfortunately makes this list, Vol fans. I'm sorry, but there were a couple of ways he could have made this list, by the way. And I'll get to them.
Last Look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me, no contacts, no glasses, LASIK vision correction by doctors local to Knoxville.
To visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com. Simply the best.
Okay, if I agree with Caleb, it'll be this.
Hey now.
If I think he's crazy, which he is a lot,
That's crazy.
it'll be that. Now, if I think that the coach is a complete moron, it'll be this.
You suck, jackass.
All right, Caleb, Football IQ is now. Let's get it going.
John took his specs off so he could go nuclear on these coaches.
Right.
All right, so number 5, we just talked about him. I want to bring up Lincoln Riley. In their 24-17 loss to Minnesota, they had a running back who was averaging 6.5 yards a carry and had 20 carries for 134 yards. They had the ball up 17-10 with 10 minutes left. At the 10-minute mark, he had 20 carries for 134 yards. Lincoln Riley ran it exactly 0 times the rest of the game. He threw it 12 straight times with Miller Moss and lost the game 24-17 to Minnesota.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Not Caleb, but the coach. John?
Yeah, that's idiotic. As you say, he likes to throw the ball around, so I guess that's what he did. And think about it.
With his kids. I didn't finish that statement. In the backyard with his kids, he likes to throw it around.
You're an offensive guru, and you score how many points on Minnesota? 17?
17. But PJ Fleck is a genius, guys.
I want your guru card back right now.
Your guru card needs to be left at the door. Go home and punch yourself in the face. Caleb, what do you got next?
Well,
Yes.
wait a minute. I just want to pile on Lincoln Riley a second because I used to really like him as a coach. But he was at a press conference. One of his players was asked a question about if he thought it was kind of questionable. I didn't see the play, but whether a Minnesota player scored. It was a close play. I guess they reviewed it and they ruled he did at the goal line. And a reporter asked the player if he thought the player had scored from Minnesota. And Lincoln Riley said, you don't ask him that question. What does he know?
Yeah, he did say that. I watched that. I did see that.
How odd. Is he
Yes.
feeling the heat? Is he feeling that California heat?
Lincoln Riley has lost 7 of his last 12.
Give us that guru card, and you're not getting it back. I think
you're
it's
not.
permanent guru banning.
And for those who don't know California like this, it's not like the SEC where they'll come for your head. Something way worse happens if you're not performing in California.
They just don't show up.
Yeah, they just don't show up.
They just go away.
I thought
Yeah.
you all knew
If
something
you score
about California,
17
but I thought you knew something about California. I didn't like they were going to quarter him or something.
No. If you win a game and score 17 points on Minnesota and you win 17-16, the fans say, we got something else to do. We'll catch you later. They don't show up.
A lot of stuff to do out there.
What's next, Caleb?
Say wham. All right, so number 4, I'm still sticking with a little bit of X's and O's, and this is a little bit in the weeds, but I'm really mad because they were my super dog, and I had Cal being my super dog over the weekend, and they were up 35-10, and I was relaxed. I'm
personal.
good.
It's personal.
Yes. Well, hey, here's the thing, though. I don't know if you guys actually saw former Tennessee defensive coordinator Justin Wilcox and his defensive schemes. He built a 35-10 lead, blitzing all night and playing man coverage. He decided, in the third quarter, up 35-10, to switch his defensive scheme to a cover 2 prevent and stayed in that defense the rest of the game, trying to run out the clock. Played zone the entire rest of the game, despite building the 35-10 lead off man. That's why Miami came back and won.
Well, keep in mind, I've word on the street that he had a lot of money bet on Cam Ward winning the Heisman. So that worked out well for him. Yeah, Justin Wilcox. Maybe he thought at that juncture when he was way ahead, he thought his former boss, what would Derek Dooley do in this situation?
I don't know. Probably just scream at me like he used to do at press conferences. All right.
Is that that's crazy or is that?
That's well, I mean, for him, I mean, it's full scale.
You suck.
Yeah, he's supposed to be smart. He's a defensive guru. I know what we do. We put him on guru suspension. We're not taking his card just yet, but he's on guru at suspension. Okay. Is that fair?
Yes.
That's totally fair.
Super double secret quiet suspension. What was that called in Animal House, John?
Double secret
probation. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got, Caleb?
Okay.
All right. So 3 more. The next one, our old friend who actually resurrected Josh Heupel's career, Barry Odom, who is now at UNLV. UNLV lost to Syracuse in overtime 44-41, but they got the ball. Syracuse tied it up in regulation at 41. UNLV got the ball with 35 seconds left and all 3 timeouts with a chance for a game-winning field goal. Barry Odom decided to take a knee and play for overtime.
You suck, you jackass.
Well, coincidentally, 3 of his players also decided to go ahead and take a red shirt year in between plays.
But I mean, like, why do coaches still do the let me play for overtime? I'm like, guys, what is this, 1945? I mean, you're in a shootout.
It's almost as though Barry Odom had an epiphany, because think about how this season has gone for Barry Odom. He was a guy that failed at Missouri, and he was fired there. And Missouri isn't quick to fire coaches. So here he is at UNLV, a born-again, competent coach, and UNLV's unbeaten. Everybody's talking about best of the group of 5, and Barry Odom said, wait a minute. I'm Barry Odom. I'm Barry Odom. Wait. This can't be happening. Yeah, we're playing for OT here. That's what we're doing.
This is going far too well. Everybody needs to start transferring and doing unheard of stuff. Barry Odom, by the way, asked, hey, Barry, can you return to your former terrible self? And he said,
I'm your huckleberry.
all right, can you do something stupid, Barry? He said,
Say wham.
yeah, there you go. All right, Caleb, what's up next?
One more. I'm going to save Heupel for last since he made the list, but I have to throw Kalen DeBoer in here because Vanderbilt won this game because they scored a touchdown in the first half on an offensive possession where they kept the ball because when they punted it, Alabama trotted out 2 players with the same number on special teams, and that was a penalty. And so Vanderbilt got a first down and was able to score a touchdown. How, in the age of 2024, can you make the mistake of trotting out players with the same number on special teams?
It happens.
I'm going to defend him because I think it's stupid that you have 2 people with the same number.
Oh, I agree, but can a head coach making $10 million a year say we only have one person with that number? Okay, guys.
Yeah. And you know what this isn't that came from? This goes back to like the Lane Kiffin year in 2009, where he started awarding players single-digit numbers and cool numbers like 33 because everybody wants to be like O.J. Simpson. But he would do that, and John, it was like that's the first time I'd heard of it. I was an old school Philip Vollmer covering guy, and now it's a thing where everybody has to have a single-digit number or a cool number. Actually, OJ was 32, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I messed up there.
Give me a famous player wearing 33.
Tony Dorsett. It's right off the top of my head. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
By the way,
that's the only one I can think of, though. Go ahead.
I wonder if any of these coaches could have successfully prosecuted that case against OJ. Maybe they would have won and done a better job than Marshall Clark, even though they're terrible at coaching football. But
Barry Odom wouldn't want it. He'd say he'd be playing for a mistrial.
And he's actually coincidentally very jealous of Marshall Clark.
Yeah, let's move it to Malibu and try it. That's what Barry Odom would have said. I get a mistrial here, OJ. You'll be fine.
Barry Odom, coincidentally, very jealous of Marshall Clark's hair as well.
Oh my gosh. All right. So number 1, and I wanted to know John's thoughts on this because this is a double whammy football IQ for me on Josh Heupel. And it was bad. And it starts with the end of the game where there's 1:17 left. You have 2 timeouts. I don't think that's a situation where you choose to let the other team score because you're going to get if you play straight up, you're going to get the ball back with 35 seconds left, only down 16-14 with a chance to kick a field goal. I'd rather have that than be down, than need a touchdown with 1:17 left and 2 timeouts, particularly when Arkansas has a backup kicker and they can miss that field goal. But whatever, that's a strategy.
Well, I want to. Can I compound on that for a second? I think it also sends a message to defensive players that's not good. And I think Keenan Pili was pretty salty about it after.
Fair enough. I'm going to add to that, though. If you're going to do that because you'd rather have the 1:17 and the timeouts, well, how about using your timeouts on the final drive then? How about not letting 24 seconds run off the clock on a play?
Yeah. Now, and I thought, John, even before that, when Arkansas still had the ball, they could have called a timeout with about 2:45 left, then had the 2-minute warning. And then, Caleb, would they have had 2 more timeouts left or 1?
1. They would have had 1.
Okay. Yeah, but you ended up taking 1 home with you, didn't you?
Yeah. Dave, you can appreciate this having worked on deadline for a newspaper. I'm typing feverishly. I've got to have my column in as soon as the game's over. So I'm working on a Tennessee wins column and Arkansas wins column, going back and forth. When you're doing that, you're kind of half watching the game. You look up, and all I did, I just looked up and saw Arkansas guy run into the end zone. I see number 9 of Tennessee, and I'm saying, why didn't he at least dive at the guy? And I'm not even thinking about they let them score. And then, then I realized, what had happened. But Caleb makes a good point. Also, was Arkansas using a backup kicker?
They had a backup kicker, yeah.
Yeah, I like backup kickers.
A lot.
Game winner. I love seeing their eyes, that crazed look they get right before they've got to kick the ball. Yeah, that wasn't a gimme. But I never thought about it because I was so busy just trying to file my column, and it didn't even register. That's a really good point, Caleb. So you said because he's a local guy, I mean, we don't take away his guru card. but I think he is on Guru suspension. We can't do that to, some other failed coach. We got and not do it to the local guy.
No.
He's on suspension, isn't he? Yeah,
he is, and we're a lot nicer to him on this than we were Butch Jones making the mistakes that he made. I think that was I think we were ready to light him on those mistakes.
Yeah, but Butch Jones makes a mistake every 2 weeks when he gets his hair cut. John.
Yeah, but Butch Jones also he'd suffered an injury. He had before a number of games he had fallen in the locker room and landed on a player's helmet, and he was kind of groggy when he went out there on game day.
John, I don't know if you have a prediction ready or not, but let's get your keys to the game. The show represented by Banks and Jones. John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, John, keys to the game. How do you see this game shaking out? I know it's early in the week. You probably haven't actually done your pick yet.
Yeah, I have. I picked Tennessee by 16.
Okay, good stuff.
You think they cover?
I'm Dave Hooker for Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. On the way out, make sure you ring that bell, notifications on, click like and subscribe. This, again, has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, the show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee.